If you have children, you may want to give them some of the colouring sheets that are on the website. There's sheets for younger children and for older children too. Please do get them to send those in. Take a photo of their work and send those in. We'd love to show those on our website. I'm going to share some thoughts from the passage for today. In verse 6, the angel says to the women, remember that he told you that this was going to happen. And then in verse 8, the women remember his words. In the future, we'll look back at this time when coronavirus changed the world, when we lived in semi-isolation for weeks or maybe months. We'll remember this time. My wife tells me that my memory is getting worse. I can relate to the words of Stephen Wright, who said, right now I'm having amnesia and déjà vu at the same time. I think that I've forgotten this before. As ministers, we're supposed to be good storytellers. Again, relying on memory. Irving Cobb said that a good storyteller is a person with a good memory who hopes that others haven't. And this certainly is a time that we will remember, even for those of us who struggle with our memories. For my generation, perhaps a time we will remember more strongly than any other. Perhaps we'll look back at this as a difficult time, a time of sadness, loss, frustration, hardship. But maybe we'll look back and remember this in positive ways. An Italian doctor posted how he had changed his perspective of life. A former atheist, he had found faith in God, prayed to God to help him get through the day. Perhaps we'll reflect that society's role models are those who are helping the community, out helping the vulnerable, in hospitals, out doing essential services. There are some families that are managing to have some fun through all of this. I heard of a family who was learning Spanish, and I know many others are doing silly exercises. People are caring for one another more, maybe. Speaking to one another more on the phone. Or simply picking up an old hobby or a good book. And this is a time when a new perspective is thrust upon us. Today, you can decide to rewrite the narrative that will shape the rest of your life. Jesus rewrote the narrative for everybody's lives when he rose again from the dead. His words took on new meaning and new depth because he was risen. And we need to remember the words of Jesus. These words can bring us life, truth, hope, and transformation. So, how will we remember coping with this moment in history? Will we allow those words of Jesus? Will we remember the words of Jesus? Some tips from the passage. The disciples almost missed it. They don't believe the women, we read in our text. This is a time to believe. Do whatever you need to do to believe. Peter needed to run to the tomb, we read in verse 12. Straight away, he had to find out if this was true. Don't miss the moment. Remember the words of Jesus. Secondly, don't miss the opportunity. We have an opportunity to be compassionate, caring, loving, to be considerate, thoughtful, sharing, to honour God in the way that we work from home with integrity, to honour God in the way that we love our families and put others before ourselves. Remember the words of Jesus. Thirdly, don't miss the presence of God. This is a time to be prayerful. God is present and God is at work. We find God's heart in prayer. We need to spend time in prayer to give us supernatural resources, supernatural energy for our work when natural energy would fail us, supernatural creativity for our expression of faith and church when our natural creativity would fail us, supernatural comfort and patience when our natural comfort and patience would fail us. God can and will do amazing things in us and through us by his strength. Remember the words of Jesus. Fourth, don't let your memories of the past define your future. Perhaps you feel like you've already failed. Don't despair. Jesus can bring us a new start. Doug Larson did a good one-liner about memory. He said, "A lot of people mistake a short memory for a clear conscience. If we allow ourselves to remember, it's not long before we all realise that we need again to ask God for his forgiveness again. Remembering can be painful, but with Jesus we can face the memory. We can confess our sin before a holy God because we know that he offers us mercy and forgiveness through Jesus. Today can be the first day of the rest of your life and of mine. Jesus died so that we can be forgiven our sin. And when he rose again, he proved that he really had the authority to forgive our sin. That we really are forgiven. And once a sin is forgiven, we never need to drag it up again. If memories return, and you've already confessed that sin, just remind yourself that you are already forgiven. The sacrifice of Jesus is more than enough. And be at peace. Move on. Jesus can redeem and renew your life. The first time you come to the cross and every time you come to the cross. Remember the words of Jesus. And Jesus said, "Remember me." As well as remembering the words of Jesus, we remember what he did and that this brings us new life. Easter is a time of new life. Jesus says that new life is available for us now, today, and for eternity. In Romans 6 and verse 4, we read these words: Christ has been raised from the dead by the Father's glory. And like Christ, we also can live a new life. We are now going to remember the death and resurrection of Jesus as we take communion. So gather back together. We're going to sing a family song together and then take communion together. We're going to sing, "Lord, I lift your name on high," thanking God for all that he's done in our lives. Amen.